Welcome back to another Human First AI marketing podcast. I'm your host, Mike Monague from Avenue 9. You can find us at avenue9.com. My very special guest this week is Ashley Gross. You can find her at ashleygross.com. We both kept it very easy for you. We're marketers. You should be able to find us. Ashley is the CEO and founder of the AI Workforce Alliance. And that's where I wanted to start with you, Ashley, because I think everybody is kind of worried about, will AI take their job? And in some cases, I think they should. In other cases, not so much. So can you talk to us a little bit off the start here about how do we make people purposeful in our organization and
Sure.
use AI in the right way?
I mean, this is a very easy answer for me because this is the space that I came from. In 2020, I started using AI because I wanted to consolidate my work week from 40 hours down to 15 without sacrificing the quality. And that doesn't need to be this weird thing that we say. Like employers should want us to do a lot more with less time, They shouldn't be afraid of optimizing their workforce. And so my experience was once I started actually doing more in less time and the quality maintained itself, the CMO pulled me in and said, okay, implement this into marketing. And then from there, it just turned into this whole other universe where we can have this AI enabled approach to working. And if there's something that has to be done more than 2 times, there's an automation for that, or there's an augmentation that could be happening. So I think that the approach that people should have in the workforce is let's start having more conversations about how we do work more asynchronously and how we can work a 15-hour work week and still accomplish the things we need to, because we shouldn't want to be hourly employees necessarily. We don't want to be busy bees. We want to be working on one, the work that fulfills us, but also two, that leads to more opportunities, which happens to almost always be the strategic work and not the busy work.
Yeah. And I mean, that cascades into a whole bunch of other questions. I definitely think you did a great job of outlining exactly what's happening. But then I think business owners have these big strategy questions, right? If somebody is doing what they used to do in 15 hours, do I continue to pay them the same and let them work 15 hours and enjoy the rest of their life? Do we come up with more creative ways to fill those other 25 hours with new tasks or human-based tasks? Do I get rid of half of my workforce, right? And just do what we were doing? I find that most companies want to grow. They're going to use that bandwidth in some sort of creative way. They're not just going to say, oh, we'll take exactly what we did last year, but for half the price. That's not usually the way it works. But in your experience, when you're consulting with companies like this and big enterprise organizations, how do you find them thinking about it, at least in 2025?
There's lots of folks that are aligned with this thinking, but I find that I kind of set the tone for, and this is not anything new, by the way, but I kind of set the tone for, you're going to pay me on the outcome I create for your business, not
Same.
on the hourly rate, because I might be physically doing something for a set amount of hours, but there's planning, there's ideation. And most of my ideation is when I'm on a walk with my toddler. And then I'm talking to my voice memo notes and just, regurgitating and hearing myself think. There's so many things that encompass work that aren't just when you're physically typing at your keyboard. And so I think just starting to have those conversations of outcome based versus hourly rate, and because it benefits both the employee and the employer. The employer then is not paying someone an hourly rate. They're paying them based on the outcome. Did I pay you to create this really great solution for me? And did you deliver? Great. I'm going to pay you and I'm going to throw in a bonus because you knocked it out of the park. And from an employee standpoint, it's don't condense yourself down to an hourly rate, because almost never do you actually end up working for the amount that you get paid per hour. You almost always do more. And so it never really made sense to me, but I think that's how we bridge the gap, is starting to have these conversations, because there's lots more quiet quitting happening. And it's like, well, yeah, no shocker. You're paying people the same rate you've been paying them for 2 years. And the work that they're doing encompasses so much more than that salary. And
They can do it 10 times faster with AI too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I have two thoughts that I would add there. Certainly for myself, that's how I think about it, and the work that I do with Avenue 9. I came from a sales training company. When you think about salespeople, a lot of what they do isn't hourly rate stuff, right? they could be goofing around or building relationships or going to a baseball game or playing golf.
You
And
never know.
on that golf course, closed the biggest deal in company history.
Right.
And are you going to fire them because they were out playing golf? Probably
Exactly.
not. It's very much a results based, profession. Not all professions are like that. I get if you're a bricklayer or something, the more bricks you put on the wall is your output. You're going to have to spend hours doing that. But so much of our work is intellectual or emotionally based, where it really can be results. And then even in some of that output. So as a content marketer, we used to charge per blog post or per word for ghostwriting and things, and go, well, now you would owe me $50,000 an hour because I can create that much content in an hour with AI, where that's actually in the benefit of the employer to
Hmm.
not pay, for the hourly output that they used to pay for and stuff. So it makes sense to kind of have this retainer based model where I want good output. I want those results, and I'm not actually going to pay for the output or the hours, because the hours would be cheating me, the output
Hmm.
would be cheating them. We need to come to some sort of new agreement. Is that fair?
That's totally fair. And also, this is nothing new. Like our consumer economy right now, every single place you look, it's not we want to see more. It's we want to see what we want to see faster. And so it makes absolutely no sense why our workforce hasn't aligned a lot sooner than now, and that AI is kind of the tool that is creating these conversations, because this should have been happening a long time ago. People want things and they want them now. The way that we shop, we no longer are putting things into Google search and waiting and going through pages to find answers. We're using Siri, we're using Alexa, we're talking to ChatGPT. We want real value very quickly. And so the faster an organization can adapt to, are we using our dollars to just create things for the sake of creating them and building things for the sake of building them? Or are we actually generating value? And if we are, how do we bring that value faster to our clients? That's really what this whole conversation encompasses.
Yeah, when I think about that, I think of a lot of different AI strategies. One I wanted to ask you about is, I think you do more work in agents than
Mhm.
I do. And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but I struggle with especially autonomous agents. I think, I want humans in the loop. I don't necessarily want robots to do human jobs and the thinking for us, but those routine tasks and things are certainly more interesting. So when you
Yes.
think about agents and the role of that, are they replacing humans? Are they working as assistants to the humans? Are they doing jobs we wouldn't want humans doing anyway? All of the above? How do you think about it?
It's an autonomy continuum. So I look at agents as, yeah, absolutely. You can go full autonomous if you really wanted to. Is it going to be well? No. Is it going to be great? Are people going to be happy about it? No, absolutely not. Like I've never once been put on hold where a robot was telling me that somebody would be on the phone with me in 10 minutes and not been like insanely frustrated. Sales is always going to be human to human. And so I look at it as this continuum of, um, what am I already doing that I may or may not already know about that is slightly being augmented? And then what is being automated that I might not even be thinking about? And then what am I comfortable doing as a next step? Maybe I have note takers, and if I'm in a Microsoft ecosystem, as long as I have a call being recorded and transcribed, it is already note taking for me. It's already uploading to a SharePoint folder. I'm already sharing that out with the team. And so then my next building block would be, okay, well, like, why don't I automate then creating tasks from that call transcript? Because it's not something that like I'm uniquely positioned to do. Like anybody can input tasks into a project management system. I look at what are the next steps logically that can be done autonomously to get me to actually just focus on the work and not communicating, planning, and inputting the work before you actually do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk to these large organizations, I think we've already kind of mentioned that, sales will probably be human, especially enterprise sales, where we got to build consensus across departments, answer really complicated questions, and work longer relationships and longer sales cycles. But there are other jobs that I think are clearly going to be outsourced already, if not very soon. How do you think about, as an employer or a leader of an organization, which departments do we need to be really concerned about, and which ones can we let coast a little bit in this AI world?
I would actually push back a little bit and say that every time somebody is doing anything, regardless of what department, what role, they're selling something. You're always selling something. And so if you're in HR, you're selling on a culture. You're selling new employees and brands and potential clients on the culture you have internally. If you're in product, you're selling people on the idea that this product is going to solve their problems. And so if you think about sales in every single aspect of our day to day, we are selling something. And our emotional intelligence is what closes those deals. It's what creates that narrative of whatever we're trying to pitch and whoever we're trying to win over. And so I persuade my clients and prospects to think about how can you start to pick apart your day to day into tasks that do not need your emotional intelligence, so that when we do want your emotional intelligence, we have your full undivided attention, because you didn't just spend your whole entire day researching and creating a pitch deck and building all these ideas and pretending you're a research analyst for a day, and you failed to pressure test this and role play stakeholder conversations, and you just totally tanked that because you didn't prep enough in the pressure testing and the internal stakeholder conversations, because your whole entire day was just filled up with a bunch of monotonous work that could have been automated.
Yeah.
And you could have been the human that ultimately had AI do a bunch of the work for you, get a V1 off the ground, because everyone's like first 10 thoughts are not actually thoughts. They're like thunking before you get to the thinking. And so like essentially that's what you're letting AI do, is like just get the thunking out, but like it's
I like
10
that.
times better even at its crappiest ideas, so that you can look at that and just be like, nope, yes, love this, let's go on that. And that's something that you only can do because you have all these contextual understandings of your workforce and your employees and who had a bad day or who just lost a loved one that AI doesn't have. So ultimately, when it gives you a V1 of a decision, you still have all that context and you get to say, like, yeah, this makes sense. It's just you get to have that conversation and that realization a lot faster than you would pre AI.
Well, that makes me think about younger people, because I think those strategy type jobs and the thinking and even sales, knowing how to communicate with somebody, have traditionally taken people a lot of time to learn, or you have
Yes.
to become an apprentice and do the hard work of the data entry and all those versions and stuff in order to learn the strategy. So I think when I think about the workforce in general, that's going to create some problems, because we're not going to have entry level jobs for people to learn in, or it could be challenging for them to jump to those strategy positions. And then I also got to wonder, you mentioned you have a toddler. For your own child or for somebody in high school, do you think there are maybe professions that you would not recommend going into, or some that you would definitely recommend going into as you look at the workforce in general?
Yeah, I mean, great questions. I would say, as far as like, what are the skills that you're going to need to get those strategic positions? I actually think the best skills you can have are understanding that you don't know everything and knowing when to ask questions and that it's okay to ask questions, and embracing failing and failing fast. I see a decent amount of executives, I'll say, in this fear paralysis state because of AI. Because as you, to your point, have these experiences and you build up this muscle, you become an executive at some point in time. And therefore, the executives think we need to know everything because we just spent the last 15 years working our way up here. If we don't know something one time, people are going to think that we don't deserve this role. And that's crazy, but that's the methodology and the mentality they have. And for AI and experimentation to happen, you have to let go of, you're not always going to be a teacher, and knowing when you can put on your student hat. And it actually makes everybody else around you feel more comfortable, because if you don't know the answer and you're not afraid to ask questions, then they don't have to be afraid to ask questions. And so you inherently create this better culture just by not being afraid of being a student again and embracing safe experimentation, but also like rapid failure, because that's when you really learn a lot. And I think that's the message for these younger generations as well, is it's less about picking a career that's safe, because like, what does that actually mean anymore? Um, and saying like, okay, what is a curiosity that you have? How can you use the technology to get to that 3-year version of you or 5-year version of you doing that thing that you love and studying the task or the industry or the hobby that you love faster? That's what I would use it for.
I love that. I'll add a couple of things onto that when I talk to young people, I think is really great advice. One is the what you do will change throughout your
Mhm.
career. Current estimates, and I'm sure these are going to change, or that like you're going to have 9 different what you do's throughout
Yeah,
your life. For young people, 7 of those haven't even been invented yet. Podcaster or internet marketer wasn't a career. YouTuber wasn't a thing when I was in high school. So they haven't even been invented yet. So don't get hung up on the what.
right.
I think also too many people focus on finding their why or their
Mhm.
mission, and that can be overwhelming. That can feel exhausting, or you can feel frustrated that you don't get to do kind of that purpose all the time. But the how you do it is what I heard you say in your answer. You reminded me of this because you can't control how you do it. And I think more and more we're going to be getting paid less for what we know because AI knows everything. We can look it up, we can ask the answer to any question. And so you don't need to study the what as much, but you can learn how to be flexible. You can learn how to be a better communicator. You can learn how to think and how to experiment and how to fail intelligently and learn lessons. And those are the skills that are going to pay off for the rest of your life, regardless of what you do.
Absolutely. And my 4-year-old, I mean, we use ChatGPT on a daily basis to create coloring book pages because there's no coloring book page that has Paw Patrol and a dinosaur and a million other random characters from different movies that they're never going to be on the same page of a coloring book in a store, right? And so he knows that we can prompt this thing and it will spit out from the printer a coloring book page for him. So, if anything, I'm just seeing this technology helping people be more creative. And there's been so many studies over and over again that show the folks that can use their imagination and their creativity, they're truly limitless. And so, if you think about that, maybe the role that you want doesn't exist yet. What a great opportunity for you to take something that you're super passionate about and this technology and figure out a way to make that role because it's happening every single day already in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, both what you're doing and what I'm doing. AI, strategy consultant was not a role that was available just a few years ago, or it
Exactly.
was very small, and now it's a gigantic role. So those things will ebb and flow. Any other trends that you're seeing across the workforce that I should ask you about? Or one of my favorite questions is, and if you haven't noticed already, I like to ask multiple questions, and then
Love
you
it.
can pick whichever one you like to
Options.
answer. You don't have to do both. One of my favorite questions is, where do you think is a common myth or misconception that we need to blow up, and where people are missing the point in all of this?
I think that they're missing the point by either underestimating their own value and just thinking this technology is too complex for them to use, or having like the shiny sticker syndrome of, oh my gosh, there's so much out there and everyone's talking about this tool and now this tool and now this tool. And I haven't even looked at those or tested those because it really doesn't matter. I think that social media and media in general does a really great job about making everything look glamorous. And you think that people are being really productive because you see someone one time talk about an AI tool. And in reality, you have no idea if they're being productive with that tool. You have no idea if they're actually using it every day in their day to day workflow. So I think just remembering that you're only seeing one half of this. And
Mhm.
if you just have your head down and don't wait for tomorrow or like don't wait it out. I hear some people say that. They're like, I'm just going to wait. Like, wait for what? If you can't use like this version of technology of AI specifically is the worst iteration we're ever going to see. If you can't use the worst, how are you going to use the next model a year from now? And so I think just kind of like combining those pieces of advice, don't wait, embrace the messy middle now. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to practice 30 minutes a day. But also, like, don't try to do what everyone else is doing. Everyone else isn't you. They might not even be doing real things with it, and you don't know. So, figure out where, if you're a business owner or a C suite executive, where in the business are you leaking money? Identify that problem and start trying to solve it with AI tools safely, safely. And if you're an employee, figure out what you want for yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, and then figure out how you can specialize in this technology for your role to enhance it and create jobs before they even exist. Because I promise you, by the time the market creates the jobs for you, the salary is going to be way worse than you would have chosen it to be. And the description is not even going to become close to what's actually needed for that role. So you create the role.
I think that's really great advice on that one. I mean, one, if we can define the role, then we can plug a lot of people into it, or we can have AI automate it and
Yes.
do it. So the jobs that are most valuable are the ones that we can't define. You're solving problems that we didn't know existed or we don't have a solution for, right? Otherwise, you're just
Yes.
a cog in the wheel.
And in marketing specifically, 2 roles, I have started to see this one role pop up a few times, but not necessarily enough as I want to. Marketing engineer. So
Mm.
marketers who understand how to use AI tools to derive the data out of these tech stacks and build out actual insights and not worry about attribution, just be able to pull up insights and look at a whole customer journey and be able to communicate that in ways that mean something to the rest of the organization. And then analysts, AI analysts, same thing, to be able to look from the lenses of different departments with those specific domain expertises and be able to pull out sentiment analysis and analyze what you're doing with your product. What is your roadmap? Where does the market say you are right now? And then what do your customers say? And then do something with that information.
Yeah, the other thing that you highlighted there that I wanted to put a pin on is the overwhelm. I think it's really easy for me trying to get into AI and talk in this space is that it has to be a team sport. There is so
Mhm.
much being
Yes.
generated. There's something like 50,000, 70,000 new AI tools and these updates are coming every single week where it's like, oh, AI can't do this and keep consistency across different image prompts. And oh, nope, today it can, or it can't remember what you prompted 2 weeks ago. Oh, now it can. It has all of them from all time. And you're like,
Yes.
okay, wow, that's a big change. And it can feel overwhelming, I think, for people that are intimidated by it a little
Yes.
bit. So I appreciate you saying that just find the few things that work for you. And most people aren't making money with it yet. And it is overhyped. But at the same time, the hype has substance behind it. There is a core
Yes.
message and a fundamental shift that's going on, even if you can't just say, you know, hey Siri, go do my job for me, and
Right.
expect it to do that. Um, there is gold here, but you got to kind of have to pan for it, and you got to narrow your focus because if you go too wide, you're going to get overwhelmed. And the last thing I'll add to that is I get overwhelmed myself as a marketer of how much I can do in a short
Mhm.
amount of time, where I can actually produce more content than I can even read myself.
Right.
And I start thinking, well, I haven't finished editing that, and I've already created the LinkedIn posts and the promotions and the images and the outline
Yes.
for the next thing. And you're just like, whoa, I need to like take a deep breath and slow down myself as a human because I'm overwhelming what I can
Yourself.
produce. This jump in productivity is so fast that it's overwhelming. Do you find yourself in the AI profession feeling those two things as well?
I mean, I think I'm always gonna be overwhelmed. I don't think there's actually ever going to be a real balance. I think it's just more so having an intentional why. I mentioned this before, but I just started using AI in 2020 because that's when I found out I was gonna be a mom. And I was like, yeah, I am not gonna be able to have a newborn and work 40 hours. That was it. I had a very intentional why. And then once I was able to accomplish a 15-hour work week with the exact same output and quality in less time, I was like, okay, now I don't want to be an employee. I want to own my own business. I want to align businesses based on this technology because that's kind of the point of technology to begin with. Like I had these really intentional whys for what I was doing. And that makes all the difference because it kind of cuts through all of the noise so you can focus. A lot of the tools out here that we're seeing today are wrapper tools. And what I mean by that is it's a glamorous front end with a back end that is still OpenAI or Claude. So why
Yeah.
wouldn't you just use OpenAI or Claude and optimize every aspect and feature of those tools and know them and know how to actually be productive and drive value with them instead of just trying to use all these different front ends that may or may not exist in another year now and you don't know how they're going to evolve. So just because they're the talk of the town tool today doesn't mean it's going to continue to evolve to meet a marketer's needs the next day and years from now.
100%. So my last question for you is the fun one. We won't hold you to it, but if you had to predict like 30 years out after AGI and everything, what do you think humanity ends up like in the workforce? Are we working for fun? Do people still work because they have to? Are we all on the beach playing, or are we in some sort of matrix? Where do you think we end up? 30 years from now. Best
I think we're
guess.
probably already in the matrix. That's the short answer.
That's
I would
true.
say I would say that I honestly don't think that this technology is going to change as much as people are anticipating it's going to. We're still humanity. And that's, very overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. Like people still are who they are, and having new technology isn't necessarily going to change them. And so I think that we're going to continuously see people that are leaning into this technology, making money, promoting themselves and growing. And then we're going to see some folks who don't want anything to do with it. And maybe they did figure out a way to automate their work, and maybe they are on the beach, or maybe, you know,
Yeah.
they're not employed. But I don't think that it's actually going to change humanity that much. I think that people are ultimately going to dictate how much this technology changes them. And I think that people are already set
I
in their
love
ways.
that answer, because the horse and buggy still exists. People still go to a restaurant and they want to have somebody make food for them from scratch. And you can order a fast pizza, or you can, get a self-driving car to take you somewhere, but that
Exactly.
doesn't mean you want to every
Right.
time. So that's a great point. Uh, Last one. How can we help you, or how can you help us? The website, ashleygross.com, the AI Workforce Alliance. What do you think?
I love it. And if you have any questions, there's no such thing as a silly question. So come find me on LinkedIn, ask me, I answer all of them. I assure you that if you have the question, 10 other people do, and you are not doing yourself a service or anyone else by not asking these questions. You got to feel safe and comfortable somewhere.
Awesome. Yeah, a great LinkedIn follow. She has a great following there. Find Ashley Gross on LinkedIn, or just go to ashleygross.com and you'll find the links to everything else. Same thing with Avenue 9. If you need help with your content marketing, your marketing strategy, figuring out these tools, let me know. Go to avenue9.com. Ask any question about AI marketing. I will do my best to direct you to the right results if I can't do it myself. Until next time, keep going. Have fun with it, everybody.